think, well, thank you for the intro, Esme, and thank you to Community South for the opportunity to speak. Hopefully, there's a couple of things I'll touch on here which may be linked to what John was saying about needing new sites. What I was planning to go through was some work that we've been doing across the UK, which is about developing new sites and supporting sites, primarily in the public sector, but also private sector sites, and looking at ways that community renewables can be incorporated within that. Just a quick piece on Ricardo and who we are. So we offer integrated and optimized solutions for whole energy systems, looking at future transport system, future energy systems, and scarce resources. So that's looking at alternative fuels for transport, so hydrogen comes into that. We also have a division with a company that's actually involved in manufacturing components for cars. We cover future energy systems, so looking at whole energy systems and every component of the energy system, and also scarce resources. So thinking about a sort of a circular economy approach. The vision that we have, create a world that's fit for the future. And oh, I just noticed I've been muted there. Hi,
we can still hear you, Simon.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you.
All right, great. Just came out that you'd muted me there. I was just saying that yeah, our kind of vision is to create a world fit for the future, and that's something that kind of inspires us as a company and employees at Ricardo. The other thing I thought I'd just kind of touch on that is quite inspiring is something that happened last week and kind of picks up a theme from earlier on this morning. We've been involved in the design of PPA equipment, kind of picking up on the kind of shortage of PPA across the UK at this time, and we delivered 2,000 of these visors to care homes and hospitals last week, and we've got another 3,000 of them going out over the next 2 weeks as well. And so, as a company, you know, we're involved in a wide range of initiatives. One of the things that is obviously falling out from the current coronavirus situation that we're in is the impact that's having on the energy system. And what the chart shows here is the change in electricity demand over the weeks preceding the movement consent control order that was announced by the PM on the 23rd of March. You can see in green the demand curve across the UK. All right, great. Okay, well that's unfortunate because it means you didn't see the nice picture of the visors that we've manufactured and distributed last week. What I was coming on to talk about was the electricity demand profile and the impact that's coronavirus has had on that. You can see in green what the profile was back in the week commencing the 2nd of March, and how that's tapered off quite considerably from the 23rd of March onwards, which is the line that's shown in blue, where actually you can see there's very little difference in the demand profile during the week from the weekend. And normally, as you can see from the previous weeks, there's quite a considerable drop. The impact of that less demand is what we're seeing is kind of a glimpse of the future electricity market. There's a higher proportion of renewables on the network that needs to be managed, less system stability, and so then what that leads to is an increasing need for system flexibility. there's a system called PICLO, which the distribution network operators are using to procure flexibility services. And 6 of the DNOs are signed up to this scheme now. And through a trial that they had last year, what was identified was that there was considerably less, or there was 456 megawatts of demand that were needed, flexible demand that were auctioned, but actually only 116 megawatts of capacity that bid into that qualified for various reasons. They couldn't supply the power under the flexible arrangements that were required. So that left a big gap, 340 megawatts to be filled. And so that represents an opportunity for the right sort of generator to supply that power. However, the contracts that are there, there's various kind of risks associated with those. And it's really batteries that from a low carbon perspective, have the greatest opportunity of supplying that power. With batteries, we did some work for a solar project down in the southeast of England last year. And as part of that analysis, we looked at different revenue streams for batteries. We did some price forecasting for the batteries. And you can see here how the prices are forecast to drop quite considerably. There's generally 5 different categories of revenue for batteries. And that covers ancillary services, the capacity market, and others forms as well. Of those, really, the 3 that are listed here are the ones that at the moment are the ones that are economically viable. Of interest there is the combination with solar, which allows increased on-site demand, on-site use of the solar power that's generated if it's connected to a private wire. And if you layer that on top of energy arbitrage and flexible services, then that then brings you to a really kind of commercially sound and viable model. Where that can then be applied links to some of the work that we've been doing for a number of clients across the UK. This is driven by the targets that the public sector estate have to reduce their carbon emissions by 50% by 2032. And this covers over 3,000 sites across the UK, so universities, prisons, hospitals, MOD facilities. There's a program that's been running for about 18 months now, the Modern Energy Partners program, which we've been involved in. And what we did through that program was look at a strategic site evolution plan over 40 years for one of these sites. We actually looked at Sheppey Prison and the cluster of prisons on Sheppey, and taking very much a whole systems approach. So looking at the power needs, the heat needs, the transport needs, and linking to that the storage requirements, both heat and electrical. Through that whole energy systems approach, then doing a deep dive into where that power, where that heat, and where the transport and the fuel for the transport could come from. And what we'd found through that process was actually one of the most cost-effective ways for the power to be supplied was to link into local generators. This is where we found those opportunities for community-owned renewables to play a part in the decarbonisation of this public sector estate. This was the first one of pilot project that was carried out for the first site. At the moment, there's another 40 sites that are being developed and going through this same process, all dotted around the UK. And what we'll see once this pilot program has completed, that will be rolled out across the 3,000 sites And part of the initiative there is not just the kind of technical piece and how can you technically reduce the carbon emissions, and how you design this site evolution plan that will evolve over a long time frame. But it's also thinking about the commercial and regulatory barriers that there are, and particularly with the public sector estates, issues around procurement that can play, that can prevent some community-owned projects having a part to play. We expect to see the first of the pilot projects progressing, or it is progressing this year, and as I said, through that piece, we'll then start to get learnings from the barriers that there are to community involvement, and then those will then be shared over the coming year. We've also, we work with a number of private sector clients on a similar kind of whole energy systems approach. And there, what we are, and with that, you then have a client such as an airport who is looking to supply, to get low carbon power for the airport, but they maybe want this off balance sheet, so they don't have to make the investment themselves. And so this is a kind of another area where, with the evolving market and the need to bring together distributed power and link into transport and heat and the decarbonisation of heat as well, where we see increasing numbers of opportunities for community involvement. The challenge then is obviously, how do you get access to engaging with these sites, and that's from the client's perspective, is often where there needs to be some sort of media in place, whether some sort of technical advisor, or whether there's through a program such as the Modern Energy Partners, and there's an engagement piece for communities through that route. And it may be an opportunity there for organisations like Community in the South or Community in New England to play a part in engaging with these sites and with this program. The final piece that we've been doing quite a bit of work on recently, that probably a number of you are aware, particularly those I know from the region, is around the climate emergency. And we'll know that 67% of councils have declared a climate emergency by February 2030. And what we've seen over the last year is the influencing factor that's having on local policy decisions. We have been developing, working with councils on updating local development plans. And as part of that work, the councils are very keen to understand how they can provide maximum value within the local area, and obviously locally owned renewables that help them deliver their zero carbon goals, is a way of keeping more of that value within the local community. Bristol here is a project we worked on with CSE and Eunomia last year, and the conclusions of that work, particularly from an energy perspective, are quite considerable in terms of the volume of new capacity that needs to be installed in the within the city, and the levels of investment that need to be made. As we heard earlier on, the council is moving forward with that, and those levels of investment are being made. And this is just one example of obviously a more kind of proactive council that's making this change. But there are others that we're working with as well, such as Sheffield, that are starting. We're starting with on the same journey, and we expect that they'll be getting to the same conclusion, and we would expect there again for their, as part of their net zero plan, to be an increasing level of locally owned renewables to be part of that journey. So kind of in conclusion, not so much new development models, but changes in the market that are being driven by climate change, by climate emergency, and by overarching government policy on reaching the legally binding target of net zero by 2050. And the consequence of that is now starting to flow through to more opportunities on the ground for locally owned renewables. Thank you very much for your time.